Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Moy Style podcast. Today we got back Josh Cathcart with Hitting Done Right. I always enjoy having conversations with him, especially about hitting. I like to always pick his brain because I know he's got a lot of experience. He's seen a lot of different hitters, different styles. So today's topic is going to be about different hitting philosophies. So how do we apply, when to apply it, and all that good stuff. So Josh, I appreciate you for being on. I'm not gonna make you introduce yourself again, but I do want to jump right in. So I know, obviously, with social media world, there's so many different styles. People, complain that this, that's not what you should be teaching the kids and this and that, whatever. So when it comes to different hitting styles, so like, how do we choose the right one for the kids? Like, how would you go about it?
Well, by the way, thanks for having me back on, dude. Like you
Yeah,
said,
no problem.
I always love chopping it up with you. You were just down here in Houston doing your thing. It was nice to go to dinner and hang out and do all that. So again,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Um, Man, for me, I always do an evaluation when they first come in, and you kind of get a feel for how their body is moving. Number one, are they in control of their body? Do they have some understanding of how their body's working together? Um, and then, what are the misses? I call them that every kid has a miss or a flaw, right? You have some kids that are going to really drag the barrel through. You're going to have some kids that may have a chopping action. You may have some kids that are really over rotational. And so they end up falling backwards, toward the dugout as they swing, losing direction. You've got kids that get out over their front foot really bad. You've got kids that stay back too much and fall back. There's a whole host of problems that the swing has, and hitting super hard. And so how can we, number one, look at a player and where do we go? Where do we start? I get that all the time online. Hey, what would you do first with this player? Get dads or moms that, we've been trying this, and nothing has really worked. And I think that there's a lot of wasted time where experimenting can be good. You have to learn on some level what works for you. But I
Mhm.
think if you find an instructor that has done their research, really understands the different styles, the different avenues of getting to the same point. Because what are we trying to do as a hitter? You're trying to be on time, you're trying to be on plane, and you're trying to have solid contact, right?
Mhm.
And that looks different for everybody. I did a post yesterday just on Instagram that, there's no one way to swing, and I think that people get caught up in, oh, well, I'm going to be this style, or I'm going to be this style, or I'm going to be this. And while that's fine, if that works for you, but I see a lot of players, and not just my players. I'm talking about players that have reached out. I'm talking about players that I have seen, just progressing kind of on Instagram or Facebook over time, that kind of really struggle to find what works for them consistently. So it takes a little bit of time, but I think that we can alleviate a lot of wasted time by honing in on a few areas of these different styles, these different ideas that can actually mesh together if you do it right.
Right. So what about because as a kid I was taught different things too, but obviously it's not as advanced as it is now. But when it comes to knob of the ball to the knob of the ball, knob of the bat to the ball,
Yeah.
do you recommend that? Do you teach that, or is it more like you said, like with different hitters, different
Um,
hitters?
I think that idea, obviously, it's been used by some of the greatest hitters to ever walk the planet, right? They'll sit there and they'll tell you, "Hey, I'm taking this knob straight down. I'm going to the ball," and so obviously we're not going to discount that. I mean, they're the best in the world talking about it. I generally don't use that exact terminology for kids, and at this point, I'll have to get up and demonstrate. It's easier that way. Um,
Right.
if if we're talking the ball's here, and I literally take my hands to the ball, wherever that is, that's going to get us pushy, man. Like it's going to get here. I do believe as you start to turn, yes, I get this way. As you
Yep.
start to turn, that knob is going to get pointed at the ball. Like at some point it is, but it's as I'm turning. I'm not simply just going and pushing down. All right,
Mm-hmm.
that would cut the zone. You're not going to get the zone coverage, all of that, all of the stuff that you need. Get deep. Cover it up, back to front, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's just like anything else. It has to be applied. As I get into my turn, yeah, knob to the ball, and then my hands are going to release and go. But it's not simply just a push down. And I think if you use that cue without understanding sequence, then it can really cause some problems. It's going to cause steep swings. It's going to cause, like I just said, swings that don't cover the zone. Your timing has to be absolutely perfect because you're dealing with a window that's like this big instead
Mm-hmm.
of a window that's, this big.
Right, because when I first started a few years ago, that's what I was taught, and that's what I was teaching. I mean, I didn't last long with that because then I met that guy Justin Stone. I think you've heard of him before. He's with the Cubs, but he's the one that kind of explained to me the swing. But I used to kind of somewhat teach that, and then I started to realize that these kids would do that, but would actually do what you're saying. They would literally disconnect. So like they would push, the hands would get away from them. They would start getting around the ball instead of getting behind it. That's a pretty good point. I think for older people, for like professional players, I think that's the thought they have, and it works for them. But now when it comes to a scissor kick, so I see that a lot, I'm watching it, and it makes sense to me what they're saying. But so what does that really mean? A scissor kick, like how does that work on a hitter?
The scissor kick is basically for me, and to break it down as easy as I can. It's a directional move. It's more of that keeping the chest down on the ball all the way through and really staying to the center. It creates a little more space as that foot starts to work away. You open up that swing space, and so it can help players like stay on breaking balls where they're not pulling off. It gives you more time. And it's one of those things that if you have players, like I said in the beginning, if you have players that are turning hard and have that flying front side and are falling back kind of toward the dugout when they're done, having that scissor move is really good. It's very core oriented. There's not a release of the back foot, that active or weightless back foot. You're not going to see too much. It's just that slight little kickback. Usually staying in line. You're not going to have the forward move. I don't know why my camera's at a weird angle,
Yeah, you
but
got it. Yeah.
yeah, you're not going to have that forward move with it. It's just, right kickback. I mean, it is what it is. And the fact that there's so much, I mean, I'm going to use the word hate. That may be a little strong. There's so much negativity toward it. I don't get it, because if you look back at video of some of the greatest hitters to ever play and now currently, they scissor. And it's a natural thing that happens for some of them. And then again, for some, I apply it with some of my hitters. Like again, if you have a super rotational guy or girl that really can't control their core and can't control direction, the scissor move and that thought process of face down, chest down, work underneath and to the middle, dude, it's really, really good and is very beneficial. But again, it's not something that every player is going to benefit from. It's
Right.
not something that every player can do. You have to take into consideration the hip mobility. You have to take into consideration the core stability, those types of things. So I'm actually, like I was telling you earlier, I'm actually going out to visit Joey
Right.
out there in Vegas and really pick his brain on how he determines and what body segments and movements he's looking for to apply that. So I'm interested in that. That's going to be fun for me. Education time.
Yeah, that'll definitely be pretty interesting because I like to, honestly, I like to hear about it too, kind of learn from
Yep.
it. So what about when I hear a couple coaches out there that talk about turning the barrel to the catcher's mask or catcher's head.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that you work with hitters on at all?
Man, again, it has to be broken down and applied correctly.
Right.
I understand the thought of early barrel acceleration on the back. Like I get it, the snap. However, after years of doing this, talking to people, watching film and all this, you're not going to see that move. Like it doesn't literally go back to the catcher. And just like the knob to the ball, I think what is kind of lost in translation for people and lost on the internet is the turn. If you start your, and I've gotten in front of the mirror and done this, I've tried it with players. If you get your turn going first, your sequence is right, you're in the ground, the hips fire, and then you think back to the catcher, if you do that, it ends up being connected. That's the thing
Right.
is that if you just simply sit here and snap it back, you're disconnecting from the get-go. But if you look at the guys that have this and teach this as their primary method or philosophy, when they demonstrate an actual swing, the barrel doesn't disconnect from the body. As they're turning, it comes right next to the shoulder. They're connected and they're working through. And so that one is one of those that it's just, man, I'm in my personal opinion, it's just demonstrated very badly. Across, all over the place. It's demonstrated bad. The head going backwards. The head has to stay still. I think any hitting person will tell you that once that front foot hits the ground and you're into launch position, the head can't move,
Right.
especially not falling back and making you look up. So again, demonstration. But after saying that, I have had players that come in and they get really front sighted. They want to go out there and lunge. They take the knob and they are steep with it. And I'll tell them, hey, we're going to learn a hand pivot. Okay. And as you get turning, I want you to think about that barrel getting back behind you. I don't say back to the catcher. I say back behind you, like working to the shoulder as we're turning. And it's really, really helped. It helps guys create that zone coverage. You are in the zone from back hip all the way out to extension, which is a great thing. People talk about being able to hit it out of the catcher's mitt. Dude, that's a yes. The
Mm-hmm.
later the more zone you can be good at being late. And when you get on time, that barrel's releasing to the front. Hey, all good things. I just don't understand people just knocking heads over it. Hey, you got to do it this way. Hey, you got to do it this way. Hey, you got to do it. No, you don't. You can mix all of these.
Right.
Okay. So that's one of the things, like, man, after being online and doing this, I just wish that people could collaborate more on those. Be like, okay, this is what I believe, but I also see the benefits of these other things for different people. And all you have to do is go look at a Major League Baseball game and watch 18 guys hit, and you're going to see 18 different load styles. You're going to see 18 different thoughts on deck. You're going to have one guy that's working his back arm through. You're going to have some guy that's chopping straight down with his front arm. You're going to have some guy over there getting the barrel working back. And it's like all of these guys are playing at the highest level, and every single one of them is thinking and doing something different. But at the end of the day, like I said, on time, on plane, hit the ball hard.
Right. What about excuse me? What about getting on top of the ball? So when do you ever use that, and when would you use that?
I use get on top of the ball a lot when I'm dealing with high tee. I think as the game is evolving and the velocities are increasing, you see it at the major league level, and it started trickling down college and now into high school. Dude, there's more high school guys pumping 90 miles an hour plus now than ever before. And you got to remember that they're facing hitters that aren't very good. And so 90 miles an hour to your average high school kid is freaking gas. And if you're not thinking get on top, you don't have a chance against that. So yes, I use get on top with a high tee. I'm not one of these guys that too often is like, hey, I'm trying to hit a ground ball. Sometimes I'll tell kids, hey, we're trying to hit a ground ball to second base, or we're trying to hit a ground ball to shortstop if you're a lefty. But that's more if we're really scooping, if we've kind of got this big loop in the swing instead of kind of that shallow, like we talk about the Nike swoosh or whatever. This is annoying me. Well, I don't know why my camera's all off. But anyway, so, but yeah, again, apply when needed. There are some guys that for their swing, I'm like, hey, dude, we're trying to hit a fly ball to right field, or you're trying to hit a fly ball to left field, or a line drive over the second baseman, line drive over the shortstop, stay in the middle. I do think hands above the ball is a really good cue, and not necessarily hit the top of the ball, but keeping your hands above the ball and allowing the barrel to work under because of shoulder tilt. So.
Well, right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just kind of looking back to when I played, and I was taught that quite a bit, but I would literally try to get on top so much I almost got on my toes trying to hit this thing on top.
Wow.
And a lot of times I would slide the ball and then freaking pop it up. So it didn't make sense to me back then, but obviously now that I understand it better, I'm like, well, I wish I would have known that back then.
Well, and I think that's a good point too. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, they're hitting pop-ups. They must be uppercutting or scooping." A lot of times, pop-ups are because you're cutting it. You're coming this way and you cut it, and it just
Right.
So, and on the flip side of that, you'll have the kids that have some loop in their swing and they catch it too far out front, and so they hit the top and they hit a rollover, and everybody's thinking, "Oh, he's swinging on top of the ball." No, your timing's just off, and you're out in front of that, so you're hitting the top, or you're chopping down and you're just clipping underneath it, so you're hitting a pop-up.
I'm glad. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm glad you said that, because a lot of coaches say catch it way out in front, like catch it out in front. But a lot of times you're catching it almost towards the end of the swing, and so I feel like that, like kind of like what you're saying, that's what causes the pop up or the rollover. I'm telling you from my own experience, because I was taught different things like that. I was taught put the tee way out in front, and then so you can extend the hands way out there. And I was like, shoot, this is not working. And if anything, I was shifting my body.
That ain't working.
Right.
Yeah, so I am a firm believer in letting the ball travel. I think that optimal contact is going to be kind of right inside the front foot to just in front of it. You're talking this much of optimal, and then if we're late, we're okay. If we're early, we're going to be okay. And dude, if you run into one out in front, go get it. There's also thoughts that, again, have to be understood and applied properly, that may work for big league guys or higher level hitters than younger hitters, because of bat speed, because of how good their timing is, their ability to make adjustments. As a general rule for younger hitters, I don't want them thinking about going and getting it out in front, because now you're talking about reaching. Now you're talking about not having adjustability to the off speed when that starts coming, those types of things. So I would much rather see younger hitters be a touch late, not only in the swing, but even in their mental processing. Hey, I'm going to let that ball get here. I'm not going to reach out and go get it.
Right. And would you say that when the kids are hitting off the tee, do you think like those kids that tend to jump quite a bit? I don't know what your thoughts is on this, but what I tell our kids is start off late. So like when they're hitting off the tee, I want them to think late and then work their way up on time. I don't know if you do the same or you do something different. I'm talking about the kids that jump quite a bit forward.
Yeah, I don't. Generally speaking, when I'm on a tee, I don't use timing words, late or early.
Right.
I use deep and out front.
I got you.
So I do start with the tee deep. Like I'm not going to start with it middle and out in front of your front foot or inside. I'm going to start with that thing like off your front hip, maybe even the belly button, really work into the inside, and then gradually work up. But I'm never going to get them I say never. Never's a strong word. Don't ever say never. Sorry.
Mm.
But very seldom do I put the tee out front.
Right.
Unless, again, apply when necessary. If you've got a kid that's alligator arming it and they're coming in there and their swing is this and they're never getting that release out to the
I got you.
middle,
Hmm.
yeah, if they're just kind of this way, then I may get that tee out in front. Um, but most of the time for that, I'll have something else. We have the bat throw where you literally throw the bat.
Yeah.
Um, the lid drills where it's out and kind of release just to get that directional flow.
Hmm.
Um, and people still, there's still people out in the world that think that you actually push to extension too. Um, and that needs to be discussed on some level. Extension's just timing and directional release being on point. If you have
Yeah.
those two things, extension's going to happen. It's not a push and force extension.
Okay. Now, when it comes to hitting the ball opposite field, so the reason I'm asking you this right now is because I feel like some kids and coaches may, I'd say more kids, but they get this kind of mixed up because they think opposite fields like almost like, especially when they hit up the tee, they want to push the whole body to the opposite field. They want to guide it that way instead of working on the point of contact. But um, so when it comes to working opposite field, what do you recommend?
Number one, it's a must. With that, and it seems to work the best for me is always keeping the head behind the ball, or in this case, behind the tee, and letting that release work. If they ones that okay,
I think I
um,
lost it. Okay, we're
yeah,
good.
no, we're good. So the ones that actually get out and they want to push and they want to take their whole body out there, that's where maybe we need to get more into this back leg thought, keep the head behind the ball. And I don't want you to feel like you're pushing that way. I want you to feel like you're kind of releasing the back side that way. Um,
Hmm.
I use the term follow the right or follow the rear shoulder, depending on what it is, because if you're working on that pitch outside, you're going to come out of connection sooner than you would to the pitch to the inside. So it's not a get here and push; it's just a release, and it's huge, man. If the younger you can get them understanding how to drive the ball the other way, the better. And the only way that you're truly going to drive any pitch consistently is to keep your head behind it and have that release, not a push.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I also noticed that when they start doing the whole push thing, anything inside, they almost jam themselves. They back away because it speeds up on them too.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, now, when it comes to staying inside the ball, what does that really mean?
Inside simply actually is the barrel inside. People talk about the hands and everything. We want to keep the barrel inside. This is one of those. It's not confusing. Well, it's confusing for some. I don't know that you could possibly get your hands outside the ball for most cases, unless it's really, really up and you get out here. But if you look from behind, like catcher's umpire's view, you're not really going to see hands that get outside of where the pitch is. What you will see is hands that are going to come out and the barrel kind of works around. And so then you get into the rollover. But staying to the inside simply means that inside path with the hands and then letting the barrel kind of work to the inside of the ball, not necessarily your hands. And it has to be done for every pitch, inside especially. But the further away you move, you still have to have the inside path. One of the cues that I use pretty much every day for kids, and it has seemed to work over the years, is knob to the front inside corner of home plate. If you can think about as you turn, taking the knob to the front inside corner, that's going to get you inside for most everything. The barrel release is going to cover the whole zone. It seems to be a thought process that has really worked.
And I think you talked about last time I saw you, like going along the line with the knob, or
Mm-hmm.
is that kind of the same concept? Just kind
Same idea.
of
The inside corner one is more of a rotational thought for my
right,
kids that are more rotational at the top. Um, the down the line is kind of the Freddie Freeman idea. People have probably seen that where he
right,
talks
right,
about take his hands. But again, you have to have it in context. You have to apply it correctly. If you simply just start taking your hands straight down that line, you're never going to release the barrel. Okay.
right.
The hands actually do go in an arc
Yeah,
around, but it's not all tight like this. There is a point of where those hands are starting to work more in a straight line and then back around the body.
right. Okay, so now what about when you have kids that come up to you, and I asked kind of the same thing to Coach Nate last time. Because you'll have, let's say you're working with a kid, and then he goes back or she goes back to their team, and the coach, and I think I asked this last time. They come back to you and like, well, this coach is saying this, and you're saying that, so I don't know which way to pick. Because I guess some kids from on varsity they do the same. I had a kid the other day tell me, well, my coach says I'm never going to be able to hit at the varsity level, just doing whatever the swing that he's doing. But I feel like they're teaching the same thing. It's just they're trying to say in their own words, and they just want to make it their own way. So what recommendations do you have for somebody like that that's getting two different um, ways of thinking of, I guess, approaching ball?
Number one is communication. You like you said, I really want to understand what their coach is telling them. Um, for me, I try to work off of that instead of, hey, my way, what we're doing, yada, yada, yada. Because I don't want them to have that kind of anxiety at their practices with their coach, where, oh, well, I'm hearing this, and the mental gymnastics are just going on. Generally speaking, they probably are teaching the same thing. Now, if you have two really different philosophies, right, or movement patterns that you're trying to teach, let's say that one guy is a knob, like a true knob to the ball coming down, and the other is HLP, stay in the back leg, barrel back, right? Those two are so far apart that could be difficult. And at that point, you just say, all right, let's try. I'm going to try to work you through this and help you understand your swing better. And that's where the player's accountability comes in. Because once they understand their swing to the best of their ability, they can apply what they need to apply from each thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I coached high school, right, for 9 years before I started doing this, and this is the program's way. This is what we're teaching. And back then, we didn't have all this information at our fingertips. So it more was, hey, this program is going to hit like this. This is our thought. This is our movements. This is our philosophy. And in hindsight, yeah, it really helped some kids. But it also probably was a detriment to some that weren't ever truly comfortable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so finding out where you are as an athlete and what you're comfortable with, and then courage may not be the right word, the ability, the desire, I guess, to communicate with your coaches and say, hey, I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but I don't feel that, or this isn't working for me. I like to feel this. And hopefully you have coaches that go, okay, well, then let's go with that and let's work from there to find out what works best for you. Um, and that's at a high school level where the kids need to do it. At the youth levels, that's where, I've got kids. Well, my travel coach said to do this. And, I had a softball girl and I did a post on it. She came in, well, my coach told me I had a baseball swing. And so I need to change this. And it's like, what are we doing, man? Like, okay. And then at that point, it's like, all right, parents, can you try to find out exactly what the coach is trying to tell her? And then let me know. And so I can try to decipher it and give her something that's going to make both people happy. She's going to feel comfortable doing what she has been taught and what she knows. And the coach is going to feel like they're having some input and she's listening to them. It's a very dicey dynamic. It's tough to navigate sometimes, especially depending on personality of the coach that we're dealing with. But at the end of the day, it's about the kids and their production. And so we should be striving to listen to them as much as possible.
Right. And that was going to be my last question about the difference between the softball and baseball swing. I mean, do you really think there's a difference between
Um,
the two?
from a fundamental standpoint, no. I don't. I think if you look at elite swings from, high school girls, college guys, professional softball, the Olympians, I think that there is probably more softball girls that are, hands on shoulder, very quick. You have some that you'll see with leg kicks and whatnot, but not too much. So I think the load style and the timing mechanisms may be a little bit different
Right.
for the majority. But if you look from front foot down in launch through the swing, no difference whatsoever in my mind. Of course, unless you're talking slap, but just the
Right.
actual swing that you see those girls in the College World Series with, and the guys in the College World Series, you can put those things side by side. I've got currently 5 girls that are going to play college next year, and if I put their swings up against my, handful of guys that are going to play college next year, they're going to be almost identical once you hit launch position.
Right.
So, and that's a conversation that I've put it out there. If there's somebody out there that really thinks that there is a fundamental difference in these swings and how we should be teaching it, I'm all ears. But from the guys that have worked with elite hitters at all levels, talking about, hey, these are the same, and then the amount of video that I've watched and others like us have watched, I don't see it, man. I think the fundamentals of an elite swing are an elite swing.
Right. Awesome, man. Well, do you have any final advice for kids out there that are struggling with their swings, that can't figure out which style to pick, or like what would be the best way to go about it?
Um, Man, it is a little bit of trial and error, but ask questions. Like
Mm-hmm.
don't just go in again. When we're talking about this, I'm talking more 12 on up. If you're 9, 10, of course you
Right.
can ask, but you don't know about all this stuff yet.
Right.
But 12 on up, ask. Hey, I've seen this. I was thinking about working on this. I'm having this problem. What do you think would work? I think so many times, not so many times, a large majority of the time, kids come into their lessons and they are just blindly following.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do what the coach tells them to do. They're not going to ask why. They're not going to say if it feels bad, nothing. And so kids need to be more vocal. Coaches need to be better communicators.
Right.
Do you like this? How does this feel? And be able to understand the difference between, oh, it just feels weird because it's new, and, oh, it feels weird because this isn't right for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, is you trying to put, a square bolt in a round hole, or whatever that saying is. That stuff's not going to work no
Right.
matter how bad you beat on it. But at the same time, you do have to have some experimentation to figure out what works. So that's it, is communication. No one style is going to work for every hitter. As a young player, mimic. Find you some guys that you really like and mimic their swings and see what feels good, and then work off of that. Everybody's like, oh, well, they can't do what big leaguers can. Yes, they can. Like, you
Right.
would be very surprised at the ability of these young athletes to move certain ways. And just like anything else in the world, if you want to be great, why would you not study the greats?
Right. Yeah.
And so there's a big benefit of that, and just go from there, and that's where that trial and error, Lance Berkman once said, man, I'll never forget it in an interview. He was talking about becoming a great switch hitter. And he was like, it's boring. He was like, becoming a great hitter is boring. It's hours by yourself on a tee,
Yes.
nobody cheering you on, no nothing. It's boring. And so you have to understand that and buy into the process and figure out what works. But I think all of the philosophies, the methods that we talked about today have their benefits and can be beneficial. And mixing and matching some of them together is the way to go. And there is no one absolute, man. If there was, it would all be figured out and we wouldn't have jobs. If there was
Right.
one way to do this, and so,
Right.
there's just not. Hitting's hard. It's very individual and it's fluid. Guys revamp their swings all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, Josh, appreciate you again, man. I always love having you on.
Always, dude.
Yeah,
I'm ready for you to get back here. Let's get a camp going, homie.
Yeah, we got to get that going too. I just got to figure out the schedule, but yeah, definitely. And also, I'm gonna leave Hit and Don't Right links below if you're watching this on YouTube, so you can go follow him and you can see where he's at doing camp. So you can, I highly recommend his camp. So
we're about to get merchandise going. I see your hat up there. I'm about to have my hats out, my hoodies out. So y'all check out the website.
Nice. Awesome, man. All right. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and remember, keep it Moy Style.
Hey guys, Moy Style Baseball here. If you're interested in having me come out to your city for a fielding camp or a hitting camp, or if you're in the Oklahoma area and you're looking for private lessons or group lessons, you can shoot me a text at 251-509-3815. You can also email me at moystyle33@gmail.com. Keep it Moy Style.